Would Penn State and Ohio State actually consider leaving the Big Ten? Well, if they were going to do it, they have to do it together.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
My name is Seyko. I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. He is Jay Stephens, the host of Locked On Buckeyes. And thanks so much for joining us on this crossover episode and making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network out there. As we're talking a variety of things in this Penn State-Ohio State crossover. The shadow portal, where players could unenroll from a school and transfer somewhere else and walk on to a new football team. Will that affect Penn State and Ohio State? In theory, it definitely could. Expectations for both teams going into next season and beyond, because we don't play each other until 2028. What is up with that? But I like the conversation about Penn State and Ohio State and Michigan leaving the Big Ten together. Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Have your cake and drink it too. Birthday cake flavor is back. No fork is needed. Vanilla cake flavor, caffeinated kick, and no sugar. It's party time. Order now at 5hourenergy.com or at Amazon. Friendly reminder to let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. Jay, Penn State and Ohio State and Michigan being all linked together, leaving the Big Ten because it would be more financially beneficial. This is all true. These games make $100, $150, $200 million allegedly when Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan play each other. Yes, financially, it would make sense for these schools to leave the Big Ten, but it would absolutely annihilate the conference if it happened.
Absolutely. It would annihilate the conference, but I like the fact that if these schools left the conference, they would still be in alliance together to where they would still play each other every single year.
They would have to.
The scheduling piece would be way too hard if you didn't already have a matchup with 2 or 3 schools, a contract where you're playing them every year. It would make sense. I mean, these are 3 of the biggest brands in the Big Ten. The Big Ten there's a reason why Big Noon goes to Ohio State, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, whenever they're playing, because the money is there, the draw is there, the viewership is there, and it will make way too much sense for them to form an alliance, to break off, to do their own thing away from the Big Ten, and the Big Ten would fall. If you take those 3 brands out of the Big Ten, USC doesn't draw what Ohio State does. Oregon doesn't draw what Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State do. Indiana is a new kid on the block, but will they sustain their new spot in college football? Nobody truly knows. If you take those 3 schools out, the Big Ten is looking at, well, can Wisconsin hold us up? Can Michigan State hold us up? Yeah, absolutely not. No, exactly. No. It's not going to happen. It would make too much sense for them to do it, and the Big Ten would fall.
The Big Ten, what the Big Ten would do probably is scramble to. So when I say the Big Ten falls, this current iteration of the Big Ten falls. And you would have some kind of cluster, some merger, but that's kind of the point of this conversation, Jay, is not that, oh, the Big Ten conference would be doomed. It's the fact that Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State prop it up when they don't have to. They don't. They're kind of doing this for the sake of the sport, for the sake of the way that things have mostly been in college football. I know we've seen it so much change, most recently here in the past 5 years. But I think there's no other schools that were affiliated in this conversation. No one threw out Oregon, Indiana, USC. It was, if Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State all decided to up and leave, the Big Ten that we know as it is now would not exist and could not continue the way that it is.
Not at all. And thinking back, let's go back to 2020, where there were some real conversations about Ohio State and a few other schools in the Big Ten being independent in that season, because the Big Ten was up and down, back and forth about if they're going to have a season that year, if they're going to have a season, what would it look like? And there were just preliminary conversations about being an independent that year, but they didn't go very far because scheduling is very difficult in college football. And now when you have the SEC, all these conferences are expanded. You have FCS schools coming up to the FBS. San Diego State is now on the MAC. It doesn't make any sense to me. But this is where you're on the sport. It makes scheduling a whole lot harder. And so 2020, it didn't make sense. Where you are now in this sport, you could make a scheduling alliance with a couple of other schools and say, we're going to do our own thing, put a schedule together. If the SEC needs a power conference team in a non-conference slate, they're going to come to one of these 3 schools. Maybe Ohio State versus South Carolina, but you're still getting a respected school in the country to play against while you're still doing your independent thing. Plus, if you get all 3 of these schools to form an alliance together, Fox would love that. CBS would love that. It's a major draw to the networks to get these three schools on their network every single week.
They get a bigger cut. That's the idea, is that there's more money to go around. So you don't like the idea of Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan forming an alliance and trying to be co-independent together, because again, they would keep, now I know it wouldn't be exactly $200 million, but that's the estimate, that when Ohio State and Michigan play every single year, it generates $200 million in revenue. And then that gets split up. You got to pay your dues to the Big Ten Conference. You got to pay your dues to the TV networks in the way that it was negotiated here. And the argument is, why should Michigan and Ohio State, and then the Penn State versus Michigan, Penn State versus Ohio State, generate not necessarily to the extent of 200 million, but 150, 175? And that's the idea, is that the schools should keep that money rather than dishing it out to Rutgers, Purdue, Northwestern. So from that standpoint, when we're in such an era where money is everything and money powers, there's no competitive balance.
No,
I can't help but as a Penn State podcast host, and always being, second to Ohio State, and when Michigan is peaking, and these schools, have better finances than Penn State, right? Ohio State's either number 1 or number 2 when it comes to total revenue for football. And Michigan is in the top 5. Penn State's in the top 10. They're either 9 or 10 almost every other year when these rankings come out. What would happen if Penn State were to get in that same financial category? Because I like college football too much, I am against the move, but I can't help but wonder, hey, if Penn State was actually going to keep the money that it was worth, what it would do in likes of those rivalries. You would also need the Notre Dame component of it too. You would need Notre Dame to be co-independent, because then you could really maximize it. So these 3 teams would benefit, but then you get Notre Dame in the equation, all 4 teams, and then everybody would have an issue with that. Everybody.
I think they would. The thing with Notre Dame is weird, because I don't like that they have to play those 5 ACC games every year. I think it's a waste of their time. I think their old schedule, when they had a whole bunch of rivals and they played Michigan State, Purdue every year, they played some of the academy schools, it was very, very difficult. Adding USC and Stanford, it was a very difficult schedule, a lot harder than what they have now. If you pull them away from that and you add a 4th school like Notre Dame, and you get Notre Dame, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State every single year, then you're getting somewhere with the scheduling part. The one reason I like the idea overall, Seyko, the one reason why I think it be very, very difficult is scheduling. And I hate how college football
what
scheduling.
Teams are going to agree to that outside of those 4?
Thank you. That's the point. I don't like that college football schedule is so far out in advance. I believe Ohio State has a home schedule with Boston College in 2035 and 2036.
Nice.
I understand why you do that, but I personally don't like shooting out way like that far in advance, because it doesn't mean what it once did. Ohio State played Virginia Tech back in 2014 and 15. Well, 10 years prior, Virginia Tech was a whole lot better than they were when they actually played Ohio State in the regular season. So that matchup would have made a whole lot more sense. The scheduling part is really weird. It shouldn't be that hard to schedule games in college football, but it is. And that's why I think this alliance could work, but there'd be a lot of obstacles they would have to get over to put a schedule together.
Well, there's no uniformity in college football, which is why we are where we are. Whereas, the NFL has a salary cap and everything like that, but Ohio State, has way more money than everybody else, right? And that's a good thing in some respects. That's a bad thing in some respects. Yeah. And it's like, well, what if the balance was more competitive? So that's why eventually we're just going to get to a super league. So the alliance is interesting to discuss. It's never going to happen. Because they're just going to eventually form a Big Ten SEC Super League. And if you're not in that, well, good luck to the schools that don't get that first consideration. So for our fan bases, Penn State and Ohio State are safe in any sort of realignment or any sort of because of where the universities are.
Oh, they're definitely safe, and they're the draw. They move the needle. There's a reason why when they started talking about the equity deal when Michigan said, oh, no, we're not with this, everybody paid attention because of who was speaking. If Ohio State wasn't with something, everybody pays attention because of who was speaking. Even like Penn State's Penn State's coaching search, which took a long time, not making fun of Penn State now, but everybody's following along with that because it's Penn State and who they hire matters in the grand scheme in the big picture of college football. They matter. And so these schools, all three of these schools matter, not just in the Big Ten, but in the top 25, top 10 of college football. These brands matter. And so if they did break off and form their own alliance and they were co-independents, I wouldn't be shocked if Oregon broke off and if USC left the Big Ten to do their own thing. Because I think that those schools being together, if you add those other two inside of that co-independent alliance, that could work.
We'll see how I don't think it will ever happen. For the sake of it being fun or throwing a wrench into everything, sure, why not? But I don't expect this to happen. But it's an interesting ongoing conversation and puts a light on, hey, there's three schools that hold up the 20-team Big Ten. And if they decide to say, hey, we want to keep our money and go elsewhere, what are you going to do about it? It would cause a lot of chaos. Well, Penn State and Ohio State, from the football perspective, there's not going to be any chaos because we don't play each other for the next couple of seasons. But Penn State picked up James Peoples out of the portal. Penn State wanted to get Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham. They didn't. They went to Notre Dame. So how do Penn State and Ohio State stack up against each other where they maybe could find each other in the postseason? We'll discuss that next here on this Locked On Crossover. Welcome into the 5-hour energy flavor draft with 18 flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5-hour energy flavor draft. Now, who are you taking? Because I'm going to go with a classic. And it's Tropical Burst. You have tasty caffeine with island vibes, a delicious combination of pineapple and apricot flavors, juicy, fruit-forward tropical profile, sweet with a light tang. But you also have tons of other options to choose from. Maybe you're going with strawberry banana, Hawaiian breeze, sour apple, peach mango. You get to choose what your top pick is with 5-hour energy. 5-hour energy shots give you a boost with zero sugar. 5-hour energy has a lot of upcoming flavor innovations planned. You can find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. That is 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. The biggest stretch of the college basketball season is almost here. Buzzer beaters, bracket busters, and those unforgettable moments that everyone's talking about the next day. Being there live for something like that, hey, that's bucket list kind of stuff. The hard part is always getting tickets. Long queues, prices jumping around, surprise fees at checkout. Not with Game Time, though. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage with constant innovation. It's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's incredibly simple to use. The Game Time guarantee means 100% legitimate tickets delivered on time at the best price. And here's the best part. Fees are included in the price that you see. What you see is what you pay, period. The seat view feature, now that's a game changer. You can see a panoramic view from your exact seat before you go to buy. Truly game changing if you've never been to a stadium or a venue before. Take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is code LOCKEDON. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. So Penn State and Ohio State, I should have clarified, they don't play in the regular season, but hey, who's to say Big Ten championship? Who's to say college football playoff? Oh, well, Penn State's in a rebuild. No, not quite. And if you check Penn State's schedule, it's pretty easy. So maybe Ohio State and Penn State do actually play, probably not in the Big Ten championship, but maybe a college football playoff game, especially if the playoff's just going to keep expanding, right? Other things that we could discuss here. Jay, the Buckeyes are a national title contender. Are they the national title contender? Are they definitively the favorite in your mind?
I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite right now, Seyko. I think when you look at the landscape of college football and with a team like Indiana who has a new quarterback, and yeah, Texas has Arch Manning, but they have some other things to deal with as well. I don't view them as a clear-cut favorite.
They have to deal with Arch Manning?
Yeah, they have to deal with Arch Manning, yes. but I don't view Ohio State as a clear-cut favorite. I don't think there really is a clear-cut favorite right now. And that's kind of the beauty of this conversation right now in the offseason is there really isn't one. You may get more clarity with some stuff that comes out after spring ball heading into the summer, but Ohio State has to be in the running. Has to be one of the teams. It's the 5 teams competing for the national championship. You're returning a Heisman finalist in Julian Sand. You have the best offensive weapon in Jeremiah Smith. You have a 1,000-yard rusher as a true freshman in Bo Jackson. You have an offensive line. There's a lot of guys coming back that are returning starters that should be better next year as long as they put the right people in the right places. And the defense is returning very few guys from last year's defense, which was a very strong force. But you still have Matt Patricia. He just got a contract extension. You believe that the portal pickups Ohio State got are going to help the defense this year. But right now, it's a belief as far as we hope they do. I think they will. But once they get on the field, that's when we're actually going to find out if those portal pickups were the right ones that the Buckeyes should have made.
You reminded me. New offensive coordinator hire in Arthur Smith.
Oh, gosh. Don't get me started.
All right, I'm going to get you started because I am a passive Steelers fan at this point. Look, they've hurt me too much.
Yeah.
I have it's apathy. But so they can do whatever they want. And when they hired Arthur Smith, I said, okay, this isn't going to work the way that they think because he's about ball control and he plays complementary football. That's why I'm confused by that hire because Ohio State, I feel like isn't going to be. They're not going to have the number one defense to the extent where they can smother other teams and then just play keep away. And that's not how I would build Ohio State's offense. I would hope that Ryan Day says, okay, we're going to adjust the offense and Arthur Smith is going to adapt to Ryan Day's game plans as opposed to the other option. Because why would you make Julian Sand a game manager? Why would you run the football with Bo Jackson 25, 30 times when you have Jeremiah Smith and all the other elite wide receivers? You need to open it up and try to put 50 on everybody every single week rather than, hey, we'll beat you 21-0. I don't get that.
Seyko, you don't get it. I don't get it. I talk to some of the guys that I do podcasts with on a regular basis. They don't get it. I don't understand why Ryan Day would make this hire. I understand why he would want to go out there and get a former NFL head coach, a former NFL OC to come in and be the leader of the offense so Ryan Day can be more hands-off and be more of a CEO of the team. But I don't view Arthur Smith as a guy that's going to come in and do what Ryan Day wants. He's probably going to do more of what he wants. Now, the one reason why I think that's going to be the case is because of Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia came in last year and didn't run Ohio State's defense. He used Ohio State's talent and morphed them into what he wants to do. Got a little creative, got some different looks up front that were very confusing for some quarterbacks, but he did his thing. Now, if he did his thing and it worked last year, I understand why Ryan Day would want to go out there and get a former NFL head coach and say, come in, run the offense, do your thing. But if Arthur Smith does his thing, that's a problem, and it could be why Ohio State could be 10-2, 9-3, at the worst, 8-4. And then we're talking about a whole different conversation about Arthur Smith and Ryan Day because that hire, I don't agree with it now. I'll get upset, Seyko, if Ohio State's losing games because their offense looks like it did last year.
And then from Penn State's side of it, so Ohio State is in, I would like to put them in the category, I guess with what I'm hearing about everything, Oregon's going to be my number one team. Ohio State would be number two because they're Ohio State, but I need to see Arthur Smith. And then, okay, you lose some wide receiver depth. No Brian Hartline. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And then you're telling me about all the transfers in on defense, but it's great to have Matt Patricia back. So I can confidently say, okay, it's Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, and then it's kind of everybody else. Michigan, USC, Penn State. See, Penn State wants to be in that category of they want to be in the Ohio State, Oregon category, don't get me wrong, but they want to move themselves up from instead of, okay, there's your top five. Objectively, that's going to be the top five in whatever capacity. Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, USC, Indiana. That's the top five of the Big Ten. Penn State wants to replace one of those teams. And I'm curious to know the outside perspective. They have an opportunity. Let me say that. They at least have a favorable opportunity to do that. Your toughest matchups are Michigan and USC. And I don't think Penn State's far away from either of those teams, but that's why I want to get the outsider perspective. USC is going to be really good. I think Michigan's going to be really good. I also think Penn State is going to be really good. And I don't think the gap is that wide between, so there's tier 1, which is Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State in some order. It's going to be different for everybody. Tier 2, which is USC and Michigan, but I don't see that Penn State's in tier 3. I think they're in tier 2. They need to prove it, though, that they belong.
I would put Penn State in tier 2, but if there's like a hierarchy in that one, I would put them in the 3rd spot. And Michigan and USC can kind of be interchangeable depending on who you're talking to
2A,
and how they view. Yeah. I would view Kyle Whittingham as a better football coach than Lincoln Riley as the head coaching spot. The issue is Lincoln Riley might have more talent, and Bryce Underwood, the quarterback. Mm-hmm. You're not really sure how he's going to be developed heading into this year because last year you thought they're going to use him differently, and they didn't do it. And so I'm really curious to see how his development goes this summer heading into the fall. But I think Penn State is the team that should be number 4 in the conference at the end of the season. You have a good coach. He's going to provide some stability and do some of the same things James Franklin did early in his tenure as far as stability, getting you to believe in him and his system and what he believes in and how he's going to run the organization, run the program. I believe that that should be the case, but it's kind of like Ohio State. You got to kind of wait and see. And I hate the wait and see part where we are right now, but I don't want to jump out here and make a bold take and say, well, Penn State's going to be 4th in the conference. They should be. I'm not ready to say they will be, but with the way your schedule is, they have a good chance to make the playoff and definitely make some noise heading into January. I hate the schedule and how late the season goes next year, but
yeah.
What do I have to say? I'm not a decision maker in this sport. I just talk about it and talk about the things that I'm frustrated with.
We got to get to the shadow portal now, and I still want to get your thoughts on a portal pickup that Penn State had in James Peoples. So when we come back, we're going to talk about Peoples and what he brings to Penn State, but also there's no spring portal window, yet players can still move if they want to. We'll get to that in just a moment. Coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Coast Pay. Coast Pay is giving Locked On College listeners up to $2,000 credit for your business when you get started today. If you manage a crew, construction, HVAC, landscaping, any operation with trucks on the road, you already know how messy gas and materials spending can get. Cards get shared, receipts disappear, and month end turns into a headache. Coast Pay fixes all of that. Coast Pay is the modern fuel card and expense management tool built specifically for fleets. Fuel, maintenance, materials, all in one card with real control and instant visibility. Every transaction shows up the moment it happens. There's no surprises. If someone fuels up at an odd time or tries to buy something outside of their limit, you're going to know instantly. You get real-time alerts, so you always know who's spending what and where. Automatic receipt capture that makes month-end simple. Fraud protection with employee check-ins by text. No shared PINs. Works anywhere Visa is accepted. No detours to specific stations. It's built for operators who don't have time to chase paperwork. And unlike old fuel cards, there are no contracts or commitments, just smarter expense control. Right now, CoastPay is offering our listeners up to a $2,000 credit when you get started at coastpay.com/lockedoncollege. That is coastpay.com/lockedoncollege to see how you can earn up to a $2,000 credit. Terms apply. The Coast Visa commercial credit card is issued by Celtic Bank. All card accounts are subject to credit approval. So speaking of the portal, hey, Penn State got a former Ohio State player. Penn State fans are excited. I'm excited because it just adds to the overall depth. I think Penn State has one of the deeper running back rooms in the Big Ten. Now, I'm not familiar with everybody's running back depth chart, but I won't go and say, oh, they're the most talented, but there's definitely some depth here. They get the starter Carson Hansen over from Iowa State. They retain Quentin Martin. They add in James Peoples. Those are three capable backs. And I'd even argue Cam Wallace, who ended up staying. It seemed like he was going to go into the portal. So that's four of players that have significant, some experience playing in either the Power Four or at the Big Ten level. Jay, tell me about James Peoples, because it's surprising to me that he would leave Ohio State when he was in the mix to be the number 1 overall running back a season ago. I know that Bo Jackson took that and ran with it. No surprise, because I was extremely impressed with Bo Jackson when he was just a recruit, and I was hoping Penn State got him. But Peoples was in the mix, and so, but now he's leaving. Now he leaves when he was right there.
Yeah, you guys getting him in the portal, it's a huge win for Penn State.
Okay.
He is a guy that he got jumped by a more talented back last year, and that's what hurt his development because he needed to get on the field and just get hit a little bit.
He needed
get his feet wet, figured out how to get some reps and get some positive yardage, lose a couple of yards, figure out why you got the 8-yard run followed up by a negative 2-yard run, and learn how to erase those negative yards consistently. And so you guys getting him and knowing that he's not going to be asked to come in and start right now. And he could win the starting job if he takes a giant leap this year. But I don't believe Penn State's going to ask him to start right now. It's more come in, figure out your role, be a backup, but get the reps in the offseason so that when the season comes, you are a whole lot stronger of a running back. He had some really strong runs last year, but it wasn't just Bo Jackson. Isaiah West also jumped him in the depth chart, which really set him back. Getting in a guy like Legend Bay, who could be a guy to be more of a speedy guy out of the backfield, throws a new wrinkle into the offense. That also hurts James Peoples' ability to play at Ohio State. So I get why he went to the portal. I kind of wish Ohio State and Penn State played this year so Ohio State could play James Peoples to get a little bit maybe of a, not payback, but to see what he does against his old team. I love those kind of matchups. I don't hate him at all. I don't dislike him. He made a move for his career, and Penn State's a good place to play football.
Well, if he's going to be RB3 or maybe even RB4 at Ohio State versus he's in the rotation, I think the battle for Penn State is 1A is going to be Carson Hansen from Iowa State. He's going to be the fourth quarterback. He'll start in the first quarter, but that's what Penn State, I've noticed that Matt Campbell does that, where he'll lead with a back. That will be Carson Hansen, but you don't want to wear him down over the course of the game. And that's where James Peoples sees an opportunity to be the 1A, 1B. He might be the starter. I think they're going to end up going with a co-starter. So his battle to be the 1A, 1B back versus what, RB3 or RB4, when you know that definitively, sure, he could try to gain some ground, but it's a little bit of an uphill battle. So I think there's still a lot of untapped potential, and I'm eager to see. I am confident that he would be a good second option, and I say second as he's going to be in a 60-40 timeshare, most likely, for Penn State's running back room. His biggest obstacle is Quentin Martin for those secondary reps. Now, James Peoples coming into Penn State is great. I would hope that he doesn't leave. And I'm not trying to imply anything specific to Penn State, but it's that there is this shadow portal that the NCAA is trying to get in front of, and Penn State's got to be worried about it. Ohio State's got to be worried about it. Everybody's got to be worried about it. And I wonder, let's not necessarily Peoples, for example, but just any player, because it could be anybody at the end of the day. Say you get into a competition. You don't win that competition out of spring ball, and you're surprised with your spot on the depth chart. You're stuck. And then you get a message from an agent, from, a friend, a coach. There's all these backdoor channels with how they communicate nowadays. Hey, you could be the starter here, and we have some NIL guarantees, but there's no portal for you to enter to transfer into. So how does that work? Well, you can unenroll from the school. You walk on to the new football team. This is bad. This is bad. The NCAA is trying to get in front of this. There have been rumblings. I've heard about this from Brian Smith, who's our recruiting portal expert here on the Locked On Podcast Network, for months, saying, hey, just so you know, people are going to try to transfer when there's no portal window. Well, that doesn't make it. Why would they do that? I don't like this for the sake of the sport. I think Ohio State and Penn State are going to be just fine. They're not going to try to engage in this, but Miami just did it a year ago. You could say you could even make the argument they did it again with Darian Mensah, even though this was in the confines of the portal. Jay, this is only going to get worse before it gets better. The NCAA is talking a big game here, kind of posing threats, but it's going to go to court. And then what happens when they potentially lose? Nothing.
I don't see how the NCAA can stop it, because if a player unenrolls from school, he's unenrolling from school. He's also quitting the football team. The NCAA can't stop somebody from quitting football, nor can they stop somebody from unenrolling from school. If I'm going to Ohio State playing football, I quit the team, I unenroll from Ohio State, I enroll at Penn State, and just walk into the football team, the NCAA cannot stop me from doing that at all, because they tried the whole players can't get money thing, and that got overturned. That's not a thing anymore. Schools are now allowing to share revenue with student athletes. And so since that's a thing, that's a reality that the NCAA tried to stop, I understand why they would want to stop it, but there's no way for you to police this. There's no way for anything to happen. If a kid has the money to pay for his own way to school, and the school and the team is able to give them some NIL and help them with some NIL opportunities, the NCAA can't stop it at all, because he's doing things on his own dime, not getting a scholarship, possibly. Maybe there's a scholarship available. We don't know, but he's enrolling in school. He's also going to try to still go to class and pass his classes, so he's not getting kicked off the team for bad grades. Yeah. The NCAA has no way to stop this. And if they do try and it goes to court, the court's going to say, well, this athlete is just like a band member that unenrolls and goes somewhere else. There's nothing stopping that band member from doing the same thing. So why are you trying to stop a football player from unenrolling, quitting a football team, and going playing somewhere else?
Well, I guess here's if you're looking for the bright side of this, because Jay, you gave the very doom and gloom outlook of it, because I hate this for college football and college athletics in general. I guess because of football, this is more of a concern for football because of the way the calendar lines up. So I don't think the NCAA is going to try to stop player movement, but what they're going to do is discourage it. There is a memo out right now that the NCAA would propose these kinds of sanctions where the head coach would be suspended for half of the season. All activities, we're talking practices, we're talking games, they are suspended for half of the season. Okay, that's pretty scary. The school would also be fined 20% of the football budget, but again, you could just sue. You could just sue and say, well, what gives you the right to stop that? Mm-hmm. You are essentially suspending a coach and finding a school for something that's not bad according to the court system.
Right.
This is where it gets really complicated. I as much optimism as I would like to have for the NCAA, I don't see how it favors them in any, because they've never been ruled in favor. When has the NCAA won a court case in the past?
I have no idea.
It's gonna get worse before it gets better. So for Penn State and Ohio State, just quickly here to wrap up, are you concerned that Ohio State? I could see it happening, honestly, where I'll throw them out there. LSU, Miami, player gets hurt. They need somebody that's a backup at Ohio State, but could start at another Power 4 school. It could totally happen. It could happen. The one reason why I don't think the top end of Ohio State's roster will leave is because the culture is so strong right now that last year, none of the too deep went to the portal. I don't think Ohio State had any guys go to the portal in the spring window a year ago, which is rare. I would expect a couple of guys, maybe 5 guys to go to the portal, but the culture is so strong. I highly doubt somebody that's a starter or a key backup would make a move like that. If you're a guy at the end of your position, maybe. But at that point, I don't think the coaches would stop you or try to stop you from making the move, because you're not going to play anyway. Yeah, so be it. I'm just thinking about someone that's on the cusp of a starting role, doesn't get it, or realizes their playing time is not maybe as much, but they're still key to the depth chart. And then they get promised, hey, NIL guarantees and a better spot on the depth chart somewhere else. It's going to happen. But I think people are only going to care if it does involve a big brand, Penn State, Ohio State, USC, et cetera. Notice how we've kind of forgotten that this has happened to Wisconsin. This happened to Wisconsin when Miami did it a year ago. You're just going to see more individual instances. I hate to say it, but it's going to happen. It's going to be here in some capacity. Hopefully Ohio State and Penn State are immune to it, but to be determined. Hey, that is where we are going to wrap things up on this Locked On crossover of Buckeyes and Nittany Lions. He is Jay Stephens, the host of Locked On Buckeyes. My name is Zach Seyko, the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. Thank you so much for joining us here. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Subscribe to both of our YouTube channels and wherever you get your podcasts for daily conversations around Penn State and Ohio State. Jay, it's always great to talk to you. Really appreciate the time and can't wait to do it again very soon. I enjoyed it, Zach. Let's do it again.